Boardman native, a Valley native. So I grew up in Boardman. Originally on the south side of Youngstown is where my family originates from. I remember St. Dominic's Church growing up, and then around middle school we moved to the south side of Boardman, close to the high school. So I graduated from Boardman early 2000s. Got an appointment to West Point, the military academy, from James Trafficant back in the day. And so took that appointment September 11th, after my freshman year there at the military academy. So that kind of changed the trajectory of my life a little bit. I chose West Point because it was a good, very solid school, great reputation, academically rigorous, etc. But I was also an Eagle Scout, involved in sports and things like that, and I wanted to give back. I felt like I was the recipient of a lot of good things that our country and our community has to offer, and so I wanted to give back and wanted to serve. So I chose West Point, and met my wife there. She's a Richmond, Virginia native. We graduated from the military academy in 2005. Part of the obligation there is that you serve in the Army, so I did 6 years active duty. We both did. So by this time, it was 2005, ended up in Fort Lewis in Tacoma, Washington was my first station, then joined a unit, platoon. I took over a platoon of 22 soldiers, and we shipped out to Iraq in April of 2007, so spent 14 months over there, kind of door-to-door, local security type things in about 7 different villages. I got a nice picture of, or a framed map in my office of my time over there during my first tour. Came back to the U.S., moved out to Missouri for a few months, then to Kansas for a few months, joined another unit. A 1-star general picked me up to be his aide, so I became an aide to a general.
Wow.
Shipped out to Iraq for a second tour, a year-long tour, and that tour we got to travel around the country. He had a set of helicopters that basically responded to what he wanted, so we would fly around, meet with governors and legislative leaders to talk about the transition of U.S. leaving the country. This was 2010, so President Obama had said, we're leaving by this certain time, and so we were part of that transition. Got back in 2011, and during that tour I made the decision that it was time to transition out. My wife and I done the 2 tours, we'd fulfilled our obligation, had a great time in the military, but we wanted to kind of plant our roots, and so I ended up finding a job in Raleigh, North Carolina in 2011. Worked for a recruiting firm that specialized in helping veterans find civilian jobs when they got out. So I knew as I was getting out I wanted to continue to help people, and I thought that was a great way, veterans in transition. So did that for a few years. Was attending a church in downtown Raleigh and met a woman who had been in restaurant businesses all her life and had read about other models of a social enterprise type restaurant that would employ disadvantaged people, and she said, hey, I want to try this. I think it was on her heart to want to give back, and I had been kind of studying up on social enterprise businesses and being aware of the power that work can have in somebody's life to really change that that down cycle that they may have been coming out of. And so I quit my job, jumped in with both feet, formed a nonprofit organization, recruited a board, did the fundraising, found a location, hired a staff, and we launched the restaurant in September of 2016. So during that time, I was talking to my partner Vicki and said, my job I felt was to get the doors open, to see this thing get off. The community just jumped on it, and it's thriving still in Raleigh. I'm still on the board of directors there. But as I was getting so involved in downtown Raleigh and having a big impact, both on the lives of people coming, we employed women from local shelters. So we were having an impact on social services, but also the downtown community. Like I said, they were loving it, and they would frequent our restaurant often. My heart just kept getting tugged back to Youngstown. Like there's a lot of cool things happening in Youngstown that weren't happening when I left in 2001, and I felt like I wanted to be part of it. So meanwhile, when we were living in Raleigh, I was working. My wife got her master's from NC State in public administration. We had 2 kids. We found out we were pregnant with a third. And so it was kind of a dual conversation. It was, hey, I'm feeling this tug. I'd like to explore more about the revitalization of what's going on in Youngstown. And oh, by the way, we have this third kid. Pretty cool story of finding this position. I mean, honestly, I didn't know a lot about Goodwill before I started interviewing for it around February. I moved back to Youngstown without a job, just an excitement that there's something going on here and I want to be part of it. And so I started to network around, meet with folks who I saw as influential in the revitalization efforts, and many people were very gracious to open their calendar to me and just sit down and want to hear my story and share from their perspective what they thought was going on. I mean, we're talking the mayor and Youngstown Foundation director and Andrea Wood from the Business Journal and Phil Kidd, who's been instrumental in a lot of.
It's like a surplus of folks that are willing to do that.
It's very cool. It's very, when they hear that there's somebody else excited about Youngstown, that they're eager to meet and have that conversation. So through a series of those meetings, one of the individuals I met with was Tom Humphreys, the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, and we had a great meeting, and he looked at my resume and background. He said, I heard about this position open at Goodwill. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. Didn't think much of it, but then that night I couldn't sleep, and I was just thinking, Goodwill. So I went and looked it up. Turns out, Goodwill obviously known for its thrift stores, but its mission, and here in the Valley, we go back 125 years of history of providing services to the community. Our mission is to employ people with disabilities and provide job training, workforce development type things for others facing barriers to employment. That might be, again, disabilities. It might be somebody transitioning off a workers' comp injury. It might be coming off of welfare and gaining those job skills to get back into the workforce. So Goodwill, I wish what more people in the community associated Goodwill with is not necessarily thrift stores. That's a method for how we do it.
It's a means to an end.
It's a means to an end, but that end is employment. I wish people associate Goodwill with jobs. There's a change in mindset. People want to do good with their money. They want to do have an impact on the social things that are happening, and so the thrift store allows that. But I'm surprised at how many people support Goodwill in that way. They shop or they donate to Goodwill, but don't know what they do when they buy our products, or even why we sell products versus giving them away. And to that I say we're about employment, and so you need to make money. It costs a lot of money. But so Goodwill in the Youngstown area, we're in Trumbull, Mahoning, Columbiana, and then over in Pennsylvania, we're in Mercer and Lawrence counties. So that's our 5-county area. We have 8 stores in those 5 counties. We employ 250 people in the area. That equates to about $3 million in wages that we're paying out on an annual basis. And if you dig into that further, one of the best impacts that we have in the community, that's $750,000 a year in taxes going back into the community. We are locally autonomous and free. We don't answer to a Goodwill International. There is an international organization that provides services. They answer a lot of questions to us, and essentially they report to us. They answer to us, to our needs to do what we do better. We don't answer to them. So we're controlled by a local board of directors. We have a 24-person board, and it's one of the strongest boards in the community, in my opinion, and I've heard that from other people. So that's the other thing I would want people to know. First is that when you shop and donate, that you're providing jobs for people in your local community. All the product that we get stays here, the money that we make stays here. And the second is that emphasis that we are extremely local. And we have full control here, and so that kind of falls on me. There's a lot of exciting opportunities ahead. When you take a tour around here and meet some of the folks that have been here, and the individuals who have fallen on hard times or have grown up with some sort of physical, mental, developmental disability, and to see their smiles on their face and that they're doing productive work, it goes right back into the community. It's a really encouraging place to work. It's hard to walk through and meet some of these folks and not have a smile on your face. I mentioned as I was getting started and going through the interview process, I didn't know a whole lot of about Goodwill. And it's something many of the people on the board and individuals I've met with who are familiar with Goodwill's mission have shared with me that they wish more people in the community knew about it. So I think that marketing communications challenge is something that I'm looking forward to, starting with doing some groundwork, developing some platforms, increasing our social media presence, and we have a loyalty program where we're collecting email addresses, but we weren't really using that, so we're kind of developing the infrastructure that will allow us. But one of the things I'm most excited about is we're going through a process with a committee on our board to really clarify the language that we use to describe ourselves, that if somebody asks the question, well, who is Goodwill, or what do they do, that we're all speaking with the same language. And so we just started that process, hired an outside facilitator, got some funding from local foundations to help us go through that process. And it's going to be an exciting time, 6 months to study that question, who are we, and what's the language we use to tell our story in the community.